tip or not to tip? That is the question. And how much? So I'm often torn myself as to when do I tip, how much do I tip, who do I tip. So I figured I'd write a little blog kind of laying out my general basis and guidelines for the tipping culture. And I think it's a real timely topic as one, summer, I feel people are going out more. I know I certainly am, which is good and bad. Additionally, I have friends that own restaurants. I have clients who own restaurants in different industries, especially in the service world. And these days, tipping is front of mind because help is hard to find. It's really struggling. I've seen a lot of restaurants who are closing or shutting early because they can't find people properly compensated. And so this is a real timely topic. So first of all, I think there's three levels of people. There's or industries. There's service and non-service. Generally, tipping is a service business thing. You're not, in most cases, tipping your manufacturers, right? Your that type of business. And so let's focus the tipping conversation, I think, just for service businesses. Then you're really talking two types of services. One is your advanced degrees, if you will, financial planning, doctors, lawyers. The best tip you can give us is to recommend us to a friend that we can help out. But really, we don't live on tips, or I think legally we can even accept them. But so let's sort of take that demographic aside. Now we're really looking at your not advanced degree careers, and they fall into two categories. One is, are you paying the people directly? Your plumber, your landscaper, your dry cleaner. They're typically not tipping type individuals. So now I turn my attention to your delivery individuals, your individuals who are paid probably okay through their employer, but really rely on tips to make ends meet. So that's where I really start, is I look at that. What is the reliance on tips? And so I use that as my first gauge. If I think that they need to tips or really appreciate them for their job to make ends meet, then I tip 100% of the time. So now we've sort of got the segment of the market where tipping belongs. I think your food industry is pretty simple. You start with your 20% as a floor, in my opinion. Again, I feel that they work hard. It's a scary thing to work for tips. I mean, imagine if every single day you went to work, and depending if how well you performed that day depended on how much income you got. So I really don't like to go under 20% unless it's truly a bad experience, and it's got to be a bad experience or service, not even at the fault of the service provider. If food's taken a while out of the kitchen or something of that nature, I think sort of the old rule of thumb, which is put yourself in someone else's shoes, and you don't know what they're going through, and you can't tie it to everything that's involved here. I generally still stick to that 20%. And if I think it's excellent service, which candidly more times than not, I generally increase it. Where it gets tricky is you're not standard industries. Your bellhops, your delivery drivers, right? If someone's delivering a $10,000 stove, you're not going to give them a $2,000 tip. So these are more hard dollar amounts. What I find is the best answer, there's no wrong answer except probably not to tip, is I like to ask the owner or the salesman who made the sale and say, look, I want to take care of these guys. What's the appropriate amount? And you always get the same answer, whatever, anything they'll appreciate. But I like to get a standard. What do they typically get? $20, $40, $50. And then like to be generous. I generally try to go a little above and beyond. So that's how I approach tipping. Now I think there's a couple rules of thumb that I abide by, and I tell others. One is, when in doubt, ask. Whether it's the person or a provider, do you accept tips? Is it customary? It may seem awkward at first, but people, I'd rather ask and know the answer and handle it accordingly than be the guy who didn't tip, when I should have, and have people looking at me sideways. Next, frequency matters. Right? You go to a hairstylist once, or this is your standard hairstylist, you go every week or month or every other month. Well, that matters. And even some professionals, if you see, like, I think a rule of thumb for housekeepers is generally year-end bonus, you give them a tip of at least one session. So if you charge $200 for them to clean your house, you give them an end-of-year bonus for $200 for them to do nothing as a minimum. So frequency matters. When in doubt, ask. Next two principles are that I always go by are, when in doubt, you may not always know, tip. Right? They don't tell you if it's not accepted or not necessary, but I've almost never had someone take my tip or reject my tip. So I find that when in doubt, if you go by the other principles, just tip. It doesn't have to be the world's greatest tip, but they'll appreciate it. And then my final principle to the tipping sort of conundrum is be generous. I just find that, again, these people are putting themselves out there. They rely on tipping. They are doing something that I admire, that I envy, and would hate to have a bad day and show up to work and have it reflect on my income on a day in and day out in every customer or client you deal with. So cost you a couple extra bucks, $5, $10 extra the couple times a week you do, it's not going to break the bank for most of us. So if you're able and you have the means, I'm a huge fan of just saying be generous. So there's my hot tip on tipping. Right, wrong, or indifferent. That's how I look at it. That's what I tell anyone that asks me, as I guess people come to me for all sorts of crazy questions. This certainly isn't necessarily one of them, but I think one that at least I have some insight or thoughts on working with professionals in all industries. So, anyways, Andrew Rosen, President of Diversified, Lifelong Advisors. As always, stay wealthy, stay healthy, and stay happy. Take care.